To zoo or not to zoo? That is the question. We will be going through a series of questions, answers, and open-ended suggestions with regards to our design within the National Zoological Gardens. Looking at the site, we see that we are zooming in on the elephant enclosure and surrounding gardens. A range of animals are found in between the cages, including small mammals, amphibians, insects, and birds. Using birds as a focus area, we can investigate how zoo can potentially endeavor to cater for various types of wildlife from a conservation lens. Consider yourself visiting the zoo with your children for a nice relaxing day, looking at all the different animals. Everything is nice and peaceful until your youngest turns bright red from the sunburn, your oldest keeps complaining that he is tired, and your husband doesn't want to stop talking to his colleague he bumped into 10 minutes ago, and there's nowhere to sit. Thus, the human needs on site are shade, relaxation space, and communal areas. Birds are a lot less fussy, as their needs include water source, food source, and shelter. The question now stands, how can we marry these two sets of needs? Is there a middle ground to be had between shelter and shade? Are trees a natural occurrence of this coexistence? With these points in mind, we can see there is a need to start thinking about what the space between the natural habitats and man-made areas look like. Thus, we have our design question. How do we design for human and bird life coexistence within the urban setting? Before we do that, we need to do some research on birds. First, we ask the question, how do birds nest? I have looked into birds found within the Pretoria region and have identified 4 main methods of nesting. These include cavity nesting birds, tree nesting birds, ground nesting birds, and miscellaneous nesting birds. Here we can see the different types of birds in their nesting categories, and we will be using cavity nesting birds as a focus area. Cavity nesting birds fall into 2 categories, primary cavity users and secondary cavity users. Primary cavity users are birds that have the ability to excavate their own cavities to nest in. The cardinal woodpecker and the crested barbet are the primary cavity users of the Pretoria region. Secondary cavity users rely on natural cavities or all primary user cavities to nest in. 80% of secondary cavity users prefer natural cavities above secondary cavities, especially in dead trees. The African grain hornbill, Africa hoopoe, and Cape starling are the secondary cavity users of the Pretoria region. A very important but very endangered cavity user is the southern ground hornbill, who has moved from the vulnerable to endangered list from 2000 to 2015. This is due to a variety of reasons, but one of the main ones being a loss of habitat. There is a great attempt by researchers to recreate these nests with man-made bird boxes as a way to combat the dwindling numbers of the species. The southern ground hornbill is not the only bird species facing these problems, as 132 bird species within South Africa are threatened or near threatened. This is due to mining, urbanization, agriculture, and deforestation. Simply put, due to humans. Another challenge birds face is an abundance of alien species within urban cities. There is a biotic homogenization of alien species along the urban gradient, and only in semi-naturalized areas do we see more variety in bird life. The way to combat this is to enhance biodiversity within the urban realm. At the moment, we can see birds nesting in odd places within urban spaces. Within 2 weeks, I saw birds nesting in the hollow of a building, inside of a Pick n Pay, on top of a sign, and in a roof. Some people try to accommodate bird life with bird boxes, while others try to exclude bird life with hostile design tactics. So where can we see birds being catered for? Our first precedent is Austin Roberts Bird Sanctuary, found within Pretoria City. This bird sanctuary hosts a variety of ecological systems that support both the bird life and the human that visits the site. Walking up to the bird hide, you can see animals in a natural habitat, going about their business, swimming and sleeping. The bird hide itself is a typical bird hide made of wood and thatch, where visitors can sit and look out over the water at the various species in their natural habitat. The search then turned towards thinking on what a bird hide could be, and thus the second precedent is a bird hide found in the Netherlands. The bird hide lends from its surrounding users as inspiration, with the shape being an egg, as well as sustainable building materials. Here we see them rethinking what a bird hide could be. In my search for animal-aided design ideas, I also came across an animal-inclusive facade system designed by Barrow Happold. This system is modular and houses plants, insects, and bird life. Now that we are all converted into avid bird watchers, we can finally start with the design. The first step was to consider the water on site. 22% of the stormwater of the zoo passes by our site, so this was a crucial informant on the design process. The first step was to consider the existing trenches into bioswales around the site. Whenever it was unable to be redefined as a bioswale, stormwater channels were included. Next, the old elephant waterhole has an existing depression within the landscape, and thus is being transformed into an attenuation pond. As stormwater moves through the site, there is various planted areas and bioswales for water runoff to be captured and filtered. Additionally, riparian planting is to be used along the attenuation pond edge to allow for filtration as well as to stop erosion. Once the water is captured, it then gets stored into retention tanks for later use, such as irrigations or in dry seasons. All these interventions create social infrastructure that is open to the humans on site to view and interact with. This will hopefully encourage ownership and recognition that water is a scarce and valuable resource that should not be taken for granted. Next, we can see the existing movement on site. A new proposed green corridor cuts through the site to connect the hall and restaurant on the opposite side of the enclosure. Looking deeper into the design, the first response is permeable paving along the main access route. From this, there are various nodes of interest, one of which includes immersive rest spaces within the landscape. These spaces are designed to encourage users to slow down from the fast-paced urban environment and enjoy the nature in a restful area. Since the site is very exposed to the sun, dome structures are introduced as places of both communal gathering as well as housing birds and plants within the structure. There are various supporting lawn areas for users to socialize with others and have a picnic, which is a popular activity at the zoo. There are also various planted gardens, of which plant palette includes wild grasses as well as plants which birds can feed off, such as Leonatus leonorus, which provides nectar. Speaking of birds, we then go into the naturalized edge, which is specifically designed for natural habitats. Zooming into the naturalized edge, we can have a look at how we are catering for our bird friends. For our tree nesting birds, we have a variety of supporting tree types being included, many of which bearing berries as food source. The existing boulders on site are being extended into the bioswale as a way to create safe animal movement for the birds as well as other wildlife on site. For our other birds, there are a variety of natural areas to choose from. For example, the grosbeak weaver can nest within the reeds planted along the attenuation pond. The bioswale along the edge of the site creates a natural soft barrier to combat habitat disturbance. Keeping this edge of the site naturalized and maximizing on the existing habitats, we can utilize habitat stitching to create thriving naturalized environment. You probably thought we forgot about our cavity nesting birds, but fear not, they too will have a place. Since our cavity birds use all dead trees to nest, we are a bit stumped with the existing on site. No dead trees, and planting new ones defeats the point of the trees needing to be dead. Remember those shading domes I mentioned earlier? Well, since the birds are nesting within our trusses anyway, it became prevalent that there is an opportunity to include bird boxes within the shell of the domes, making them functional to both the humans and animals on site. In this large-scale section, we can see the domes in relation to the attenuation pond, the frontmost domes being used as bird hides looking out into the naturalized area. The back dome forms a living pavilion, supporting plants and bird life within the dome structure. Since it faces the hall, it can be used for functions as well as performances for the visitors. The next detailed section shows how the domes can include bird boxes on its facade. The domes are constructed out of timber and thatch, and the elevated nature of the hides allow for safe movement of animals beneath the structure and even a place for new habitats to form. So, we can see that the zoo is not only the place for people to visit once or twice as a fun outing with their friends and family. The zoo is an important habitat for many living things, and they need to be accommodated for. The zoo has the potential to become an important benefactor for biodiversity enrichment, continue its endeavors to advance conservation, and reconnect urban dwellers to nature. For this to happen, all those involved need to remember that we are designing for all life, and that the zoo is not only just for you.